Hi, this is Usha. Welcome to Rathod's IAS classes. Today in this lecture, we are going to see the next part of this parliament. We are going to see the legislative procedure in the parliament. So what is the meaning of the legislative procedure? It means simply the process that should be followed to pass the bill. So this is the legislative process of the parliament. So if you see the types of the bills in the parliament, there are mainly four types. The first type is ordinary bill. Second type is money bills. Third type is financial bills. And the fourth type is constitution amendment bills. So if you see in this financial bill, there are two types, that is type 1 and the type 2. So in this video, we are going to see the ordinary bill. So what we are going to see into this ordinary bill? So if you see the most common types of the bills that are introduced in the parliament, they are these ordinary bills. They can be introduced in the either house, that is either in the Lok Sabha or either in the Rajya Sabha. So when the bill to become into an act, what is the procedure that to be followed? The bill first will be introduced in the house 1 and later on after in this house 1, it should pass the 3 readings. That is the 3 stages. Whenever the passing of the bill in the parliament, that will be happen in some stages. These stages are called readings. So there are mainly 3 stages, that is first reading, second reading and third reading. So after these 3 readings, there will be the voting that will be happen. After that voting, if the yes or more compared to the no, then this bill will be passed, correct? So if you see this type of voting, regarding this ordinary bill, the needing of the majority. So the majority we need to pass this ordinary bill is a simple majority. That means more than 50% of the present and the voting. Okay. So after this voting in the house 1, if at all this is passed in the house 1, then this bill will be introduced in the house 2. And in the house 2 also the same procedure will be followed. That is first reading, second reading and third reading and later on voting. So after this voting, if at all the bill is passed in the second house as well, then it will be placed before the president mainly for the assent. So whenever the assent which is given by the president, then this bill will become act. So in this lecture, we are going to see each and every part which is regarding this ordinary bill. Okay. So let's get started with our discussion here. So we are talking about the legislative procedure in the parliament. So if you see this legislative procedure, it is identical both in the Lok Sabha and as well as the Rajya Sabha. That means it is identical in the both the houses of the parliament. And every bill has to pass to the same stages in the each house, and these stages are called as readings. So there are mainly 3 readings, first reading, second reading and third reading. In these 3 stages, second stage is very crucial. Okay. And if you see, a bill is a proposal mainly for the legislation and it becomes an act or a law when duly enacted by the parliament. So if you see, whenever the bills which are introduced into the parliament, there are mainly 2 kinds of the bill. That is public bills and next one is private bills. So what is the difference between the public bills and also the private bills? Whenever any bill which is introduced by any minister, this bill is called as a public bill. Whenever any minister or the MP of the parliament who is not a minister, whenever that person is introducing the bill in the house, that is called as a private bill. And if you see this minister, he is the part of both executive and also legislative. So these public bills have much power, or the minister have the much power regarding this bill compared to that of this MP, that is a private member who introduced this private bill in the house. So there are 2 important bills and this is very important regarding the prelims. Okay. And if you see the types of the bills, mainly we are classifying these bills into 4 types. First one is ordinary bills. So these ordinary bills are which considered with any matter other than the financial subject. So this financial subjects will comes under the money bills and as well as the financial bills. So ordinary bills means that do not relating to the finance. Okay. And the next one is money bills. So these money bills are concerned with the financial matters. They include taxation or public expenditure, etc. Okay. So these are relating to this financial matters. And the next type is the financial bills. And these financial bills also concerned with the financial matter, but they are different from the money bill. We are going to discuss what is the difference between the money bill and the financial bill in the next lecture. Don't worry about that. And the next type here is the Constitution Amendment Bill. So what is this Constitutional Amendment Bill? So these are the bills which are mainly concerned with the amendment of any provision of the Constitution. Correct? So to amend this Constitution, which majority is needed? That is a special majority is needed. Okay. So these are the 4 types of the classification of the bills. So let us get into the today's topic, that is the ordinary bills. So if you see, every ordinary bill which has to be passed mainly through the 5 stages and in the Parliament before it find a place in a statute book. So it have to pass through these 5 stages. So let us see each and every stage. So if you see, normally the stages are 3, that is the first reading, second reading and third reading. And the second reading, there are the 3 steps in this. So including first 2.1, 2.2, 2.3 and 3, there are totally 5 stages. So let us see one by one in great detail. So the first stage here is the first reading. So what you have to remember regarding this first reading? In this first reading, what happened? Any bill, either the public bill or the private bill, which will be introduced into the house. So the first thing you should remember here is, in the first reading, there will be the introduction of the bill in either house of the Parliament. That may be in the Lok Sabha or that may be in the Rajya Sabha. Okay. And the next one is, when any bill which is introduced by the minister, it is called as a public bill. Whenever any bill which is introduced by any member of the Parliament who is not a minister, that is a private bill. So whenever after the introduction of this bill, then the introducer of that bill will ask leave of the house. So to whom he asks this leave of the house? To the presiding officer. If you see, in the case of the Lok Sabha, he will be the speaker. In the case of the Rajya Sabha, he will be the chairman of the house. So there will be the provision of the leave of the house. So whenever this house, normally presiding officer, he will grant the leave mainly to introduce the bill. The mover of this bill introduced by its first reading, he will read the title and also the important objectives of this bill. So that's it about this first reading. There will be no detailed discussion on the debate happens, and after this introduction of the bill, this bill will be published in the Gazette of India. So it will be sent to the published committee and it will be published in the Gazette of India. And what is the advantage of this bill which is published in the Gazette of India? All the people and also even the members of the Parliament, they will come to know the important provisions of this bill. So if you see here, if a bill which is published in the Gazette, before its introduction, the leave of the house to introduce the bill which is not necessary. So whenever this bill which is published in the Gazette, even before the introduction in the house, so there will be no leave of the house will be given. And if the introduction of the bill and its publication in the Gazette constitute the first reading of the bill. So these are the some important things that you should remember. So in the first reading, the first one is introduction of the bill and it will be published in the Gazette. Okay. And in this stage, there will be no detailed discussion of the bill happens. Only the title and the objectives were read by the introducer. And the next stage is the second reading. And this second reading, which is important phase in the stages of the passing of the bill. So if you see, it contains 3 important steps. That is, the first one is general discussion, second one is committee stage, and third one is consideration stage. So the first one is general discussion. So what will happen in this general discussion? The printed copies of this bill or distributed to all the members of the House, and the principles of the bill and also its provisions, they are discussed generally, but the details of the bill, they were not discussed till now. Okay, so only the general discussion will happen in this stage of the general discussion, and each and every member of that House will have the printed copies of this bill. And if you see, at this stage the House can take any one of the 4 actions. So let us see what are the 4 actions. The first one here is, it may take a bill into consideration immediately on the same other fixed date. So after this printed copies were given to all the members of the Parliament, then they will immediately go for some other fixed date to discuss regarding this bill. Or it may refer this bill to the select committee of the House. So when you are talking about this select committee, one important thing that you should remember is, for example, if the bill is introduced in the Lok Sabha first, so this select committee contains the members of the Lok Sabha. Okay. And if the bill which is introduced in the Rajya Sabha, this select committee contains the members of Rajya Sabha itself. And this third point here is, it may refer to the bill to the joint committee of the 2 houses. So whenever talking about the joint committee, it contains the members of Lok Sabha and also Rajya Sabha. So what is the need of this select committee? For example, if you see, if at all any member who is introducing any bill into the House, for example, in the case of the ordinary bill to be passed, he needs a simple majority. That means 50% of the present and voting. If at all this member is from ruling party or he is enjoying the majority in the House, then he will not have any problem regarding the passing of this bill. For example, if you take another person who is not from the ruling party but introduced this bill, for example, a private member bill, then he do not have any majority in the House. So if that bill to be passed, it needs a 50% of the simple majority, correct? So in that situation, whenever there is a fear of not passing this bill, this person will go for this select committee. Mainly, if at all this select committee members are accepting that bill, okay, so and so bill is good, so it will be very helpful like that, then these members will support this bill. So this is the important thing that you should remember regarding the select committee and also joint committee. And later on, the 4th option here is, it may circulate the bill to the elicit public opinion. So these are the 4 things that can be done in this stage. So if you see here, one important point, that is, a select committee contains the members of the House where the bill has originated, and this joint committee contains the members of both the houses of the Parliament. That means the Lok Sabha and also the Rajya Sabha. So these are the important points regarding the prelim that you should remember. And let us see the committee stage. So if you see this committee stage, it is a usual practice. If you see here, the usual practice, it is to refer the bill to the select committee of the House, and this committee is responsible to examine thoroughly the bill in very detail regarding each and every word, each and every clause, each and every frame. And it also can amend these provisions but without altering the principles which are present underlying it. This is very, very important. So whenever this select committee is completing the scrutiny as well as a discussion, then the committee reports the bill to the House. So after the scrutiny by this committee, and again the bill will be sent to the House. And the last stage in the second reading, that is the consideration stage. So what happens in this consideration stage? The House, after receiving the bill mainly from the select committee, it will consider the provisions of the bill by clause, and each clause, each word, each phrase that will be discussed and also voted separately. And the members can move the amendments, and if accepted, they will become the part of this bill. So this is about the consideration stage. And the last and final stage here is third reading. So at this stage, the debate which is only confined to the acceptance or the rejection of the bill as a whole. And they will move this bill and says whether you will accept this bill or not. So this is the simply third reading. And if the majority of the members who are present in the voting, those accepting the bill, then the bill is regarded as passed by the House. So this is about third reading. And here whenever the bill which is passed in the first House, then it will be transmitted to the House 2 or the second House, mainly for its consideration and approval. And let us see the second one, that is a bill in the second House. So if you see the bill in the second House, what happens? In this second House also the bill which passes through all these three stages, first stage, second stage and the third stage. So this is the first reading, second reading and the third reading. So there are again, after this first, second and third reading, there will be again some alternatives that are present before this second House. That is, it may pass the bill as sent by the first House without any recommendations or without any amendments. And the second option here is, it may pass the bill with the amendments and it may return to the first House. For example, House 1 passed and House 2 is also passed without any amendments. And House 1 passed but House 2 did not pass the bill and resend the bill back to the House 1. And the third one here is, it may reject the bill altogether. And also it may not take any actions, thus keep bill pending for 6 months of time. Okay, so these are the 4 things that are present before the second House. So one thing that you should remember is, whenever these 3 are happening, that means whenever the bill which is sent back to the first House, mainly giving some considerations or amendments, if at all those are not accepted by the House 1. And the second one is by rejecting the bill. And the third one here is, may not take any actions and thus bill is keep pending in the second House. So in these conditions we can say there is a deadlock. So if at all that bill is very urgent, that should be passed at any cost. In that condition, what happened? The President will come up with this joint session. Okay. So according to Article 108 of Indian Constitution. So let us see further. If the second House passes the bill without any amendments, or the first House which is accepting the recommendations of the second House, then the bill is deemed to have been passed by both the Houses. So whenever the bill which is passed in the 2 Houses, then what happened? The bill will be sent to the President mainly for the assent. Okay. So but every time this will not happen, but sometimes unfortunately something may happen. So if you see that something, if the first House reject the amendments which are suggested by the second House, and if the second House rejects the bill altogether, and also second House does not taking any action for the 6 months, then in these 3 conditions it is called as deadlock. The deadlock is deemed to have taken place. Mainly to dissolve this deadlock, President can summon a joint session of the 2 Houses. So this is according to the Article 108 of Indian Constitution. So in this joint session or the joint sitting will be presided by the Speaker, not by the Chairman. If at all the Speaker is absent, that is Deputy Speaker. If at all this Deputy Speaker is absent, it will be the Deputy Chairman. But in any circumstances, Chairman will not preside this joint sitting. Why? The simple logic here is, Chairman is not the member of the House. Here the Speaker, Deputy Speaker and also Deputy Chairman, they are the members of the House. Okay. And the next one is, if the majority of the members who are present and voting in the joint sitting, it approves the bill, then the bill is deemed to have passed by both the Houses. That means if you see the strength of Rajya Sabha, it is 250 and the strength here in the Lok Sabha is 552 for example. So if you see here, it is in the 1:2 ratio. Whenever the joint sitting is happened, here already 1:2 ratio is present. If at all, the first House is the Lok Sabha. Okay, whenever the Lok Sabha passed this bill, but the avoidance or the prevention is done in the Rajya Sabha, then whenever the joint sitting is happened, ultimately this bill will be passed because the majority that is present in the Lok Sabha here. Okay. And the next stage here is the assent of the president. So every bill that after being passed in both the houses, that is either in the Lok Sabha or in the Rajya Sabha, then this bill will be sent to the president mainly for his assent. So whenever this president is giving the assent, then that bill will becomes an act. If at all the president is not giving his assent, then that bill never becomes an act. And if you see, whenever the bill which is sent to the president, he will have some choices. Those choices here, they are the veto powers of the president. We already discussed about these veto powers in detail. So what are the alternatives? Alternatives here present before the president are, they may give this assent to the bill. So he may give the assent simply. In the second case, he may withhold his assent to the bill. Whenever he is withholding his assent, then that bill will never become an act. And the next one is, he may return the bill mainly for the reconsideration of the houses. So if that house, if again passed the bill with or without the recommendations, again went to this president, then president should sign on that bill. Okay. So if you see, in this second case, whenever the president who is withholding any bill without giving the assent, then this bill will end or it does not become an act. The bill will dies. And the next one is, if the president returns the bill mainly for the reconsideration, and if that house has passed the bill again with or without the amendments and again presented before the president for the assent, then he must give the assent to that bill. So in this case, in the ordinary bills, the president only enjoys a suspensive veto. So if you see this legislative process, the first bill will be passed in the Lok Sabha or in the Rajya Sabha, and it will go to the second house and it will go to the president mainly for the assent. So without the president assent, that bill will not become an act. So here the house 1 is present, house 2 is present, and the president also present. So if you see this article 79 of Indian Constitution, it says that the parliament contains Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha and president. So in this way, there is a beautiful relationship between the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha and the president is seen. So president, who is not the member of the parliament, but he is the integral part or the functional part of the parliament. Okay. So if you see what we have studied here we studied about the legislative process of passing the ordinary bill. So we have the 3 stages in each and every house, that is first reading, second reading and third reading. And again in the second house we have the 3 stages. Total we have the 5 stages in house 1. So after these 5 stages in the house 1, it will be sent to the house 2, and here also it should pass these 5 stages, and later on the bill which is present before the President of India. Okay. So this is about the ordinary bill. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Thank you so much. Please subscribe to my channel. Please do like, share and comment my videos. Thank you.